Okay, what's up YouTube? Back with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be going into the Mormon's Codex, an ancient American book written by John L. Sorensen. Okay? We're going to be going to what language they was writing. What was they speaking? Okay? The only thing Joseph Smith did was take the brass plates that he found and translated it and brought it into the English language. Okay? He says that some angel came to him, you know what I'm saying, and told him to go out in his backyard and dig up some tablets or whatever. I'm just paraphrasing. You know what I'm saying? You know the story. Whatever, right? And if you ever read the Book of Mormon, you see that the characters in the Bible, in the book is white folks. Okay? Well, we're going to disprove that this Book of Mormon is not talking about it's not talking about white people. It's talking about black folks. Okay, so the Book of Mormon is pretty much dealing with a group of people who left Jerusalem and settled into the so-called Promised Land in Mesoamerica, South America, and Central America, and North America, things of that nature, right? Okay? But before we do that, I want you to get a piece of paper and a pen so you can take notes, right? I'm going to break this stuff down because they always drop the ball when these white people put this stuff out. They drop the ball and they don't think somebody like me going to catch on to their ass, you know what I'm saying, and call them out for their bullshit. But let's go. So, we're going to put this to the side real quick, okay? We're going to be coming from this book right here, What They Never Told You in History Class, Volume 1 by Indus Kamet Kush. And this is his other book that I taught from before, Enoch the Ethiopian, right? Same author, right? So, we want to go here, and it says, as a matter of fact, quote, there was no Hebrew written language until 850 BC, when the Jewish scribes translated the original manuscripts from Egyptian. Now, do what I'm doing, get a piece of paper and a pen, and you want to make a mental note, or write it down, and you're going to have right here Egyptian, or the hieroglyphics, and the Ge'ez to the Hebrew, right? Okay, now, like here it says, indeed, it is quite interesting and somewhat puzzling as to how Charlton Heston, in the movie The Ten Commandments, comes down from Mount Sinai with two stone tablets containing the Ten Commandments in ancient Hebrew, when the language did not exist until 200 years later. You see that? Now, there's some racism also in the Book of Mormon. Okay? Now, let's do this. Let's go here. Okay? And we're going to go right here, in this same book right here, right? And it says here that, let's see here. Right here, it says, secondly, to help remove from our subconscious minds the curse, the so-called curse of Ham, as it originated in the Babylonian Talmud. This is how the Bible was used to make us feel comfortable with worshiping white images as God, since our own image was cursed and historically inferior. Okay? Thirdly, to help expose white supremacy as it exists in the Bible in order to justify our enslavement and, quote, inferior status in this country and throughout the world. The Babylonian Talmud says, now, I cannot beget the fourth son whose children I would have ordered to serve you and your brothers. Therefore, it must be Canaan, your firstborn, whom they enslaved. And since you have disabled me, doing ugly things and blackness of night, Canaan's children shall be born ugly and black. Moreover, because you twisted your head around to see my nakedness, your grandchildren's hair shall be twisted into kinks and their eyes red. Again, because your lips jested at my misfortune, there shall swell. And because you neglected my nakedness, they shall go naked, and their male members shall be shamefully elongated. Men of this race are called Negroes. Their forefather Canaan commanded them to live by theft and fornication, to be banded together in hatred of their masters, and never to tell the truth. Now, so this is in the Babylon Talmud. It's racism in the Bible. It's racism in the Quran. You know what I'm saying? So let's put this to the side, right? And in the Book of Mormon, it says that Christ went to the Americas, right? So the Book of Mormon deals with the people of Mesoamerica, right? Go to this map right here once again. North and South America was ruled by Olmec Egyptians. You know, the Egyptians are black people. Egyptians, all those are just titles, right? Ethiopians, those are just titles. Okay? Now, put this to the side. And it says that Josephus says that Christ was a man of simple appearance, mature age, dark skin, with little hair. Okay, he was a Negro. Now, let's do this. Okay. Now, remember the guy I talked about, John Francis Champollion, the guy who did the Rosetta Stone? Okay, now listen to what he said about his own people. Okay? This is what he says. It says, this is on page 172, in this book right here, What They Never Told You in History Class, Volume 1. He says, this is how they are described in documents found by Champollion at Biban El Maluk. He says, quote, lastly, and I am ashamed to say so, since our own race is the last and most savage of the series. It must be understood that reference here is made to the people of the blonde race with white skins living not only in Europe but in Asia. Okay? He says, I certainly did not expect, that's Champollion saying this, I certainly did not expect on arriving at Bilban El Maluk to find sculptures which would serve as vignettes of the history of the primitive inhabitants of Europe. Okay? It says here that, should one ever have the courage to undertake this, the sight of these has, however, something flattering and consoling, since it does not make us appreciate the long way we have traveled since that time. Okay? Now, okay, so let's go into this Book of Mormon. Okay? Put this to the side. Let's go into this Book of Mormon. Now remember I said take a mental note of the word Egyptian, the language, the Egyptian language. This is Mormon's Codex, right? So we know that American is really America, right? So Mormon is a man, right? Joseph Smith is not Mormon. Okay, they have taken this man named Mormon and made his lifestyle into a religion. Okay? So, let's read this real quick. I got a lot of reading to do. Okay? So this is on page 13, introduction. Okay? It says, the author says, in another important way, comparing the Book of Mormon with archaeological findings is more complicated than in the case where, say, the Bible is the document under comparison. Nobody questions that the Hebrew Bible was produced in the Near East and that it describes events and peoples in Palestine and thereabouts. Thus, the quote where of the archaeological the where of the archaeology side of the equation has never been in dispute with the Bible. The archaeological material from which Denver saw convergences came almost exclusively from the work of Syro-Palestinian archaeologists and allied specialists. But the particular location where Book of Mormon peoples dwelt is not so clearly known. It says we still cannot be certain exactly where the Nephites live. Those of us who have dealt most extensively with this issue are confident from the evidence in the text that the area is Mesoamerica broadly, but the precise location of the cities referred to in the text is still a matter of probabilities and not certainties. Okay? Now, it says here that, so they said that these people, these Mormon, his people, the Nephites, the Lamanites, the Lehites, all those ites are people coming from one land to another land, right? And they're bringing with them a language, okay? So, you need to read the Book of Mormon to see what's really going on here. I've read it. So it says that another problem hindering attempts to examine the historicity of the Book of Mormon is its language. We have it only written in English translation. We do not even know in what tongue it was written, although an abundance of Hebrewism, stylistic peculiarities of writing in the Hebrew language have been detected in the English text. These assure us that the Hebrew language was somehow important in composing the record. Moroni tells us that the Nephites called the writing system, i.e. the characters. Mormon, right, he's a man, says they used Reformed Egyptian, yet he also says no other people know of our language. Whatever language means in that statement. You see that? Now, let's go here. Let's go here. It says that yet there is also a unique advantage in the case of the American record, for its primary source, according to itself, was written down in ancient times, mostly by a single individual. Mormon, drawing upon an ancient archive, his text was never subject to redaction by anonymous editors, as was the case with the text of the Hebrew Bible. In addition, the chronology of most of the Book of Mormon text is known within a few years in terms of the book's own calendar, and those dates can be read with considerable confidence in the terms of today's calendar. Despite the significant obstacles to analyze of the type mentioned, the prospects are now reasonably good for comparing the Book of Mormon with the results of Mesoamerican archaeology, history, literature, and other studies of that area using the methods exemplified by Denver and Kitchen. A large number of convergences and correspondences between the information from the Mesoamerican studies and that from the Book of Mormon are presented in the following chapters. Their number and nature show beyond question that the Book of Mormon had to have come from an ancient Mesoamerican document. Now, let's go. So we want to go into the language. So this is under the section of lineage histories as a type of record in Mesoamerica, or the Mesoamerica, right? So we want to go over here to this section right here. Lineage histories among Book of Mormon peoples. The Nephite record, both in itself and in what it says of its ancient source documents, exhibits the characteristics of a Mesoamerican lineage history. The Jaredite record shows many of the same features. The most salient characteristics are as follows. The intent of lineage history. Nephi, the founder of the Nephite line, personally crafted and wrote upon 2 sets of metal plates. They were generally patterned after the plates of brass, the record brought from Jerusalem, that verified Lehi's lineage to be of the tribe of Manasseh. On one set of plates were written sacred things that the Lord said are good in my sight for the profit of my people, that which is pleasant unto God, right? The other set of plates dealt with the more particular part of the history of his people, consisting of, quote, an account of the reign of the kings and the wars and contentions. From the latter record, the primary Nephite lineage history, Mormon's, a descendant of Nephi, made his abridgment in the 4th century A.D. Now, let's go on over here. Get into the language. Okay? Now, check this out. Okay. So it says, in this section right here, incorporated sacred myths. Knowledgeable references are made in the Book of Mormon to mythic events central in the Orthodox Nephite belief system, including Adam and the creation, Moses and the children of Israel at Sinai, the Israelite crossing of the Red Sea, the destruction of Jerusalem, and the saving of the fathers as they crossed the sea to the Promised Land. The account of the appearance of the resurrected Christ to the Nephites is only the most dramatic of a long series of sacred myths and the Nephite lineage own history that were important in their religious life. As we saw earlier, traditional Mesoamerican migration accounts follow a similar pattern. Listen to this. Used to foretell the future. Scores of pages of the Book of Mormon contain prophecies about the future of the Nephites and Lamanites and events to take place in the day of the, quote, Gentile, i.e. European invasion and occupation of the New World. You see that? So, it goes on to say that define relation with other groups. In a thoroughly Mesoamerican manner, the Nephite record provides information about relationships defined by events told in the Book of Mormon. Nephites to Lamanites, all Lehi's descendants to the Gentiles, Nephites to the people of Zarahemla, Mulekites and Jaredites, and presumable descendants from them to the Nephites. For example, Mormon refers to the lineage history to explain the revival of the Lamanites, the Lamanites, and the Ishmaelites in the 3rd century A.D., a century and a half after their nominal disappearance as social categories. Now, let's keep on going. Okay. All right. Now, let's see here. We want to go here. I'm just going to the language. Okay? So right here, it says, obscure language. It says a true consciousness of quote, a true consciousness of history was present in some Mesoamerican sources, but it could be expressed only with difficulty. It says one reason for this was the nature of the hieroglyphic script they used, which hindered clear expressions. Glyph writing systems were never capable of conveying perfectly crisp information. A slurred line of characters put down by an Aztec scribe, the Aztec scribe might result in a totally different reading. So we know that the Aztecs are black folks. Okay? Let's see here. Book this, right? Book of Mormon. Do you know that the Aztecs, the Mayans, those are all black people? Okay, so here, Negroes inhabited America something like 20,000 years ago, and further shows that they were the first Americans and not Mongolians. The Negroes were always here. They were Aborigines of the continents of the Americas, North and South America. You see that? Now, let's keep on going. It says here that, yet, even when the writing was impeccable, glyphic characters were frequently subject to interpretation. Particularly problematic was the richness of metaphors and the techniques of paraphrasing, as well as the use of cover names, nicknames, or code names. For example, in the colonial era documents kept by the Yucatec Maya, the Spaniards were referred to by nicknames: the Gayaba, Eaters, Redbeards, Foreigners, White Men, and Sons of the Sun. Now let's keep on going here. Let's drop over here, and it says here that right here on page 215. These ambiguities imposed by a script also are noted in the Book of Mormon. Nephi's record was written in Egyptian-type characters. One Nephi 1:2. It says Moroni later describes that script more fully as the characters which are called among us the Reformed Egyptian, being handed down and altered by us according to our manner of speech. Mormon 9:32. When Mormon outlined his responsibility and stated his intent in making his record, he emphasized that, quote, there are many things which, according to our language, we're not able to write. We are not able to write. 3 Nephi 5:18. His son Moroni echoed the point in the books of Mormon and Ether. He lamented, or he cried out, Lord, the Gentiles, i.e., future Europeans, will mock at these things because of our weakness in writing. Thou hast not made us mighty in writing. Thou hast made us that we could write but little. Because of our listen to this, because of the awkwardness of our hands, thou hast also made our words powerful and great, even that we cannot write them. Wherefore, when we write, we behold our weakness and stumble because of the placing of our words. Ether 12:23-25, and see Mormon, the Book of Mormon 8:12, 17, 9:31, 33. Now they just said here that they cried out and said, Lord, the Gentiles, future Europeans, will mock at these things because of our weakness in writing. So the Book of Mormon is talking about black people, because they just said that the Gentiles are Europeans, white people. So all these Mormons, so the Mormon, Nephites, the Lamanites, the Jaredites, these are black folks. Okay? It goes on to say that despite divine reassurance that, quote, his weakness would not matter, Moroni revisited his concern in the Book of Ether 1240, and again on the Book of Mormon's title page, quote, in parentheses, the last thing he wrote, where he worried once more about any remaining faults of men in the phrasing, faults of men in phrasing the text. Now listen to this. Jacob, Moroni's distant collateral relative, had also referred to the to the brevity and obscurity problem 9 centuries earlier, or 900 years earlier. He says, quote, I cannot write but a little of my words because of the difficulty of engraving our words upon plates. The book of Jacob, chapter 4, verse 1. His expression, quote, difficulty of engraving our words joins with Mormon's because of the awkwardness of our hands to reveal a problem that evidently went beyond the scribe's skill in making marks on metal. Moroni had plenty of time on his hands and should have been able to work to the most meticulous level if only the mechanical problem of making the right engraving mark stood in the way of clarity. It was neither their tongues nor mine that limited expression. Rather, it must have had something to do with the nature of the script system they were using. Of course, their engravings had to be executed reasonably right, or the reader would be confused. Though in alphabetic writing, for example, a good deal of leeway remains when even poor spelling or an awkward hand would not hurt clear expression very much. Moroni and Jacob shared frustrations, seems more with the whole system, with their inability to express through their writing system the subtleties of what they were thinking and feeling. Moroni was perfectly aware that it was possible to write with greater clarity using some other script. He was filled with admiration for the writing system used by his brother Jared, by the brother of Jared. It says, quote, Behold, Lord, thou hast not made us mighty in writing, like unto the brother of Jared. For thou hast made us him that the things which he wrote were mightier even as thou art, until the overpowering of the man to read them. In the book of Ether, chapter 12, verse 24. It says, the Jaredite script brought from Bronze Age Mesopotamia was very probably Symbolic rather than hieroglyphic. Moroni could feel the contrast and quality of expression between his text and that of Ether, but he had to stick with the language and Egyptian derived hieroglyphic script that he knew and that his fathers had used before him. Moroni had knowledge of the superior Hebrew alphabetic systems. Okay? The system, right? It says of it, he says, quote, if our plates had been sufficiently large, we should have written in Hebrew. But the Hebrew have been altered by us also. And if we could have written in Hebrew, behold, ye would have had no imperfection in our record. Mormon 9:33. That reinforces the point that it was the reformed Egyptian writing system, not his native syntax or engraving skill, that caused the problem of incoherence. You see that? The lack of clarity stemmed from the script that the Nephites used for their sacred and historical documents is implied also by the difficulty of the learning system. King Benjamin wanted his 3 sons to become, quote, men of understanding. So he caused that they should be taught in all languages of his fathers, that they might know concerning the prophecies which had been spoken by the mouth of their fathers. Mosiah 1 and 2. The expression, quote, in all the language can only mean that different degrees of mastery were possible. He wanted the prince to master the system of the maximum degree, not to just have a superficial knowledge. Quote, the language of their fathers refers to the script system with its many characters, synaptic structures, and modifiers. It says that Benjamin could also be referring to the complex semantic content needed to read the characters fully and accurately. Nephi has spoken of this phenomenon in the founding era of their history. He says, I, Nephi, he says, I, Nephi, have not taught my children after the manner, culture of the Jews. But behold, I of myself have dwelt at Jerusalem, wherefore I know concerning the regions round about. 2 Nephi, 2 Nephi 25 and 6. He says, he is not talking here about the script, which he surely did teach his children. He must have meant stylistic forms, vocabulary, nuance, interpretations, and the body of literary, historical, and theological allusions that the Jews had developed surrounding the Torah. It was only that part of this esoteric information that Nephi considered it preserved held back. In order to comprehend in the fullest sense of what was written on the plates of brass, his descendants would have had to control a great deal of Jewish contextual information. What was left for them was still complex. King Benjamin knew that without being able to illuminate the contents of the brass plates text, his people must have suffered in ignorance, not knowing the mysteries of God, right? It says to avoid that, he taught them the mysteries interpretation to his children with the help of these plates, so that the descendants can teach them to their children in turn. It says that Benjamin was seeing to it that his sons, quote, might read and understand of God's mysteries by mastering both the script in a mechanical sense and, quote, the language of his fathers in a full and cultural conceptual sense as possible. Similarly, Nephi began his record by speaking of the, quote, the language of my father, which consists of the learning, i.e. culture of the Jews, and the language of, i.e. the script of the Egyptians. 1 Nephi 1:2. It says, Lehi had, quote, been taught in the language of the Egyptians, therefore he can read the engravings or the hieroglyphics. Mosiah 1:4. It says he can read the engravings on the brass plates, which according to 1 Nephi 5:11 contained the Hebrew Torah. The substantial time investment required to attain mastery of the text explains the later observation that, quote, that some were ignorant because of their poverty, and others did receive great learning because of their riches. You see that? So let's go over here, and it says that the script used to write the Book of Mormon. The system employed on the plates of brass was adopted by Lehi and Nephi for their own records. 1 Nephi 1:2 compared with Mosiah 1:4. It says for his personal records, one for sacred writings, the other officially historical in nature, Nephi followed his father's example and adopted what he obviously considered the approved script for sacred records. Thus he too wrote in the script he called the language of the Egyptians. Let's go back here. So it says that Lehi, the Jaredites, these people are coming from Jerusalem. and they are living amongst somebody, the Egyptians. Now we just read here that there was no Hebrew written language until 850 BC. So Abraham, when he left Mesopotamia, he wasn't speaking no damn Hebrew. He wasn't writing no damn Hebrew. What was he writing and reading? Okay? These are just different languages. Let's keep on going. It says, of course, Jacob's first-hand charge from his older brother Nephi to continue writing in the sacred record would not have authorized him to use any other writing system. Indeed, born in the Arabian wilderness during his father's trek, where would he have learned any alternative? It says Welch has demonstrated the cultural continuity shown by Jacob's descendants thereafter for several centuries in the way they added to the small plate record. You see that? Later, Benjamin said that Lehi taught the contents of the Brace class to his children, that thereby they can teach them to their children, and so, even down to this present time. That it says that means that their descendants also had been taught in this language of the Egyptians. Anywhere in ancient times, it would have taken a daring scribe almost an oxymoron to change scripts in the middle of a continuing record. You see that? The use of the antiquated languages and scripts for sacred purposes is well attested in the ancient world. Latin was the language of sacred records in Western Europe throughout the Middle Ages. Sumerian was a language of scholarship and culture in Mesopotamia for thousands of years after the spoken tongue was going out of general use. Okay? So, let's drop down here. It says, the Nephite writing system continued until it reached the final custodian, Moroni, with no hint of any system change. He lumps all the writings of the record, himself, his father, and them who have written before him, into a unified, quote, we, us, which he repeats often in verses 31 to 35 of Mormon 9. We have written this record, and the characters which are called among us the reformed Egyptian, although being handed down and altered in details by us, according to the manner of speech. The most economical historical explanation of this statement is that the system of writing known to Lehi and Nephi was in use in the Near East for at least 1,000 years. From the origin of the brass plates in Egypt, Joseph, the probable person who adapted it to write Hebrew, dates nominally to around 1600 to 1700 BC through the earliest 6th century BC. The system then was transferred to Nephi, to Lehi's Mesoamerica land of promise, where it continued being used to the 4th century AD. So, what were they writing? The Book of Mormon. What were they writing in? Okay? Who are these? Who was Mormon? Who was the Lamanites, the Jaredites, and the Nephites? Who are these people? It says here that writing systems like languages are constantly changing. Thus, if we were to think of the standard hieroglyphic Egyptian as the primary basis for the system Joseph came to use, then Middle Egyptian hieratic script was already reformed, or the term may refer primarily to changes in phonetics. Elements may have been added to permit spelling out Hebrew names, for example. Further shifts might allow for writing some other language, such as a Creole tongue. According to our manner of speech, Book of Mormon 9:32. It says Moroni's description of the basis for changes in the signs agrees with what we know about phonetic elements in both the Egyptian and Mayan writing systems. You see that? Just broke down the Book of Mormon that quick. That quick. That quick. So in the summary, it says that a detailed comparison has been made between the Book of Mormon as a record and the use of records and books reported in pre-Hispanic Mesoamerican cultures. So this is before the white man. This is black people. These are your Olmecs. North and South America was ruled by Olmec Egyptians. Okay? This comparison has demonstrated that the substantial degree of similarities exist in respect to form, context, social functions, style, scribes, and users, writing systems, and other features. The Book of Mormon as a text is congruent with the records known from pre-Columbian, Mesoamerican, or Mesoamerican in all general ways and in many detailed ways. It is most unlikely that such an extensive array of facts about ancient America could come under the control of even a modern Mesoamericanist scholar, were he or she to undertake to produce a work purporting to involve records in ancient Mesoamerica. In any case, significant information on the points discussed above had not been discovered by or was inaccessible in 1830 when the Book of Mormon was printed. The Mesoamerican or the Mesoamerican-like features in Mormon's volume could only be due to its origins from the hand of an ancient Mesoamerican author. You see that? So, this book right here is called Mormon's Codex, an ancient American book, right? So I'm still reading this. I'm on page. I'm only on page. Let's see. I stopped. I'm on a section dealing with their societies. I'm on page 269, so I still have some ways to go. Okay, so I still have some reading to do. You know what I'm saying? But I gave you a brief synopsis about this Book of Mormon, this Mormon's Codex, and things like that. You know what I'm saying? So I have to continue reading this, and I have to read this right here, what they never told you in history class, volume 1, right? And here's your Mesoamericans, right? So let's do the research. So it says it's dealing with the Mesoamericans. So we type in Book of Mormon, Mesoamerican civilizations, and what pops up? Mayan, Toltec, Olmec, Zapotec, Teotihuacan, right? Mesoamerica is a historical and cultural area in North America. It extends to El Salvador, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, you know what I'm saying? Click on the images. Right here, Mesoamerican civilizations. All right? These are black people. The Mayans, these are black folks. Atlanteans, these are black people. So your Book of Mormon, it's talking about black people. That's facts. But a lot of you have never read the Book of Mormon. So like with the Book of Mormon, you can read this on your own, free on PDF format, right? As you see, we download the PDF format, Book of Mormon. You know what I'm saying? Let's let this load up. Let's open up another window. Okay. And we just showed that the white man even admitted. They say that the white people are Gentiles. It came out their own mouth. Okay? Ancient Mesoamericans, right? These are black people doing this stuff. That's writing these books on brass tablets and things like that. Sumerian clay tablets, you know. So here's your Book of Mormon. Okay, it's still loading. I don't know why it's taking a long time to load up. See, we can type it in right here. Close this out. I'm trying to just load up. My computer's trying to freeze up now. But like I said, this Mormon's Codex is talking about black people. But it's not world history saying that these people left their homeland and came to another place. Right? That's what this is talking about. So we go here to the Book of Mormon. Right? You can click on it for free. Okay? And they put stuff up like this. Okay, put that, let me see, this is not the one. They put that white supremacy up, right? So they told you in that book that the white folks was gonna come and mess with their writings, and it was being made fun of. Okay. Okay. So I just want to give you a taste of that to show you what's coming out of these people's own mouth. You know what I'm saying? What they so-called is witnessing, what they saying is going on, right? We just touched upon the records, the written records. You know what I'm saying? They was dealing with medical texts, right? Extensive compilation of natural remedies were widely produced in Mesoamerica, right? So they tell you that they call these white people the Gentiles. So Nephites, Lamanites, all those ites are black folks. These not my words. I didn't write this. I didn't write this shit. Okay. Right here. His son Moroni echoed the point in the books of Mormon and Ether. He lamented or cried, Lord, the Gentiles, future Europeans will mock at these things because our weaknesses in writing. Thou hast not made us mighty in writing. Thou hast made us that we could write but little, but the awkwardness of our hands. See that? Right here. Jacob, Moroni's distant collateral relative, had also referred to the brevity and obscurity problem 9 centuries earlier, 9 years earlier. He says, quote, I cannot write but a little of my words because of the difficulty of engraving our words upon plates. His expression, difficulty of engraving our words, joins with Moroni's because of the awkwardness of our hands. They might have carpal tunnel. You know what I'm saying? There's no telling what they had, what was wrong with their hands. To reveal a problem that evidently went beyond the scribe's skill in making marks on metal. Okay? So with that being said, I say peace, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening and watching.